Welcome to Obi-Wan Studios, and for today's LEGO Star Wars set review, I have the 75432 V-19 Torrent Starfighter. This set released on August 1st, 2025 for $65. It comes with 567 pieces and 3 total minifigures. We have General Obi-Wan Kenobi, a clone pilot, and Assajj Ventress for, honestly, a pretty stellar minifig selection for a V-19 Torrent Starfighter set. As far as the box art is concerned, we have the V-19 in its flight mode on the front, which I actually think looks pretty great, but then when you turn to the back of the box, you see it in its landed mode, which definitely doesn't look quite as good, and it's kind of an awkward angle. It's shown in and a little bit smaller than you'd expect as well. It's definitely not the focus point of the back of the box, which makes me almost kind of think that LEGO knows it's not quite as good looking when it's landed, so they tried to make it a little bit smaller and then instead highlight Assajj and Obi-Wan dueling, but that's just my take on it at least. And of course, with this set, one big question is how well does it stand up next to the original V-19 Torrent Starfighter, which is going to be a comparison video that I will be making on my YouTube channel after I'm done with this review. So let's get this V-19 Torrent Starfighter all unsealed. Unsealing the set, we have our instructions manual, a small sticker sheet, and then 5 numbered bags. Time to get this V-19 Torrent all built. Alright, so I've got the build all complete. Let me get the V-19 Torrent into that landed position, and let's take a look at our minifigs first. Starting off with our General Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I cannot tell you guys how excited I am to have just such a well done representation of Obi-Wan from the Clone Wars. It just looks fantastic. I think all of the details were truly nailed, from the hairpiece, which looks so good, both face prints that we get, and then all of the Clone Wars armor detailing. I mean, those arm prints look so great. That's why I had to open up this set first and review for you guys from the August 1st wave, because I was so excited to get this version of Obi-Wan. Probably going to be my favorite minifig of the year, just personally. All of the armor detailing looks fantastic on the front, through the waist, legs, and even on the feet as well. Looks great just to represent the clone armor boots for Obi-Wan, and then the back print as well just looks fantastic. This version of Obi-Wan for me is just so great, so well done. I'm very happy. However, that happiness does fade a little bit when we move to our clone pilots, and upon first glance, this just looks like a great new version of a clone pilot. However, there are just a couple issues with this minifig that really, in my mind, LEGO just dropped the ball on. Now, the new helmet mold, let's get it out of the way, is fantastic. LEGO did do a really great job with the actual mold for the clone pilot's helmet. However, it's the printing on it that I just do not think was done really well at all. The first issue is the yellow part on top of the helmet just not extending anywhere near farther back than it really should have. LEGO has the ability to have made it go farther back, and they just didn't, so I really don't understand the reasoning as to that part of the design. It ends abruptly, to me, is the best way of putting it. And then the visor. Now, on the box, the clone pilot's visor is shown to extend all the way across the front of the helmet, and that just kind of helps to make it not look as large. It just makes it look rather proportionate. However, that's not what you actually get with the real product. The visor is a lot smaller on the front, and just to me, it makes the helmet look a bit too oversized. Something just to me looks off. Now, I know in Attack of the Clones, the visor on the clone pilot's helmet is a bit shrunk. It isn't extended all the way across like it is in the Clone Wars. However, based off of the minifigs in the set and even the V-19 Torrent build, this just to me is clearly a Clone Wars set. So if they had to go with one version of a clone pilot, it should easily be from the Clone Wars. Like, that's just the only way it should be. So for me, this isn't an accuracy when it comes to the clone pilot and just doesn't look that great. Otherwise, the actual clone pilot's face print we get underneath looks good, as you would expect for any clone trooper variant. And then the printing for the clone pilot as well, just a little bit of extra detailing for the pilot aspect of the clone pilot, but otherwise, kind of that regular standard clone trooper design. Looks really good, but just could have been a lot better and really should have. And lastly, we have our Assajj Ventress, who is done up in the Clone Wars style based on the Clone Wars movie and season 1 of the show. The contrast between the purple, the gray, and the white, it looks so good to me. It really does work and has translated very well in the minifig style. The printing on the head in terms of the face and on the back of the head does look really good. The pupilless eyes that LEGO has been doing over the past couple of years now, though, I'm not the biggest fan of it personally. I just wish you would have had pupils. It would have looked better in my personal opinion. And then the actual printing for her outfit as well, I just think looks really great. It's fairly accurate to what we see in the Clone Wars. Like, there's nothing that looks to me that could have been done better in terms of the body printing, but the lack of arm printing here just makes her look a bit off in my opinion. It's like she's wearing a tank top when that's kind of not really the case in the Clone Wars. Like, she does have some stuff over her forearms and up towards her hands, so just having the arms done in completely white makes her look unfinished to me, especially when you have Obi-Wan with that really great arm printing for his Clone Wars armor. It just makes these two kind of look a little bit lopsided, and that Assajj just didn't get as much love and detail as Obi-Wan did, when she definitely deserved to, in my opinion. And when it comes to accessories for our minifigs, Obi-Wan has his blue lightsaber, our clone pilot has a blaster pistol, and Assajj Ventress gets both of her curved lightsaber hilts, which looks so great. Very happy that LEGO did bring back these pieces for Assajj to use in this set. So that is a nice bonus, at least with her minifig. And in general, I think the minifigs out of this set were done very well. That clone pilot just could have and should have really been brought up a bit more to standard, and then Assajj just really needed some arm printing. But otherwise, I am pretty pleased with the minifigs out of this set, especially that Obi-Wan Kenobi minifig. Very, very well done. Okay, now turning to the V-19 Torrent build, and I am happy to say that I do actually like the build more than I had expected to when I first heard the rumor about it, thinking, okay, we're going to be getting a downscaled version of the V-19 Torrent, but hopefully it's got some nice modern refinements and they can make it a good version of the V-19. And overall, I do think LEGO did accomplish that goal of making a good modern V-19 Torrent build. Now, the set does have one just weird kind of issue in terms of its proportions, so let's just get that addressed right away. Now, as you see the V-19 Torrent in its landed mode, I think most people can agree it's a little pudgy looking, it's a little stubby looking. There's something definitely off with the proportions of this build compared to what you see in the Clone Wars. It's supposed to be a very slender and fast starfighter, and you just don't get that feel looking at it. Now, when we take the build from that landed position up into flight mode, it definitely looks a lot better, and I even mentioned how on the front of the box, the build looks a lot better than it did on the back of the box. The difference in how it does look between the two modes is pretty striking in my opinion. It's just less noticeable that the proportions weren't totally right with the build. Now, the main issue with the proportions is just with the wings. I do like actually how kind of bulky the cockpit feels. That looks good to me in terms of what the V-19 Torrent actually looks like and representing that, but the wings, they just needed to be a bit longer for that center wing, and then the two on the outside, they just needed to be a little bit longer because they are a little thick as well. It just makes it feel a little, like I said, a little pudgy almost. It's a little short and stubby looking, not as agile as it really should be, and is, of course, in universe. So if LEGO had extended the wings out all a little bit, it just would have made the build look a lot more balanced. But like I've said, it's just really noticeable when the V-19 Torrent is in this landed position, and unfortunately that is the way you are supposed to display the starfighter when it's not being swooshed around in the flight mode. There are kind of two alternative ways that I've kind of found to make it look a little bit better in my opinion when it is just sitting on a surface not being used. The first one is where you actually just leave it in its flight mode and let it rest on one of the wings and then the center fin as well. The build is sturdy enough where it doesn't feel like it's going to fall over easily in this mode, and at least you kind of get a feel for it flying. Maybe it looks like it's banking or something like that, but you shouldn't have to rely on doing something like this in order for the build to look good on display. The other one that I personally do kind of like is if you have the V-19 Torrent in what I kind of imagine to be like an approach mode if it's coming into land on a Venator, for example, where the wings are a bit more flared outwards. They're not fully upright and vertical like it is in the fully landed position. It doesn't look like that when it actually lands, but with the wings just out a little bit more away from the body, it looks less awkward to me at least. So in my mind, it's kind of like an approach mode, and you guys might think this looks a little bit better for display purposes, but it's not accurate. So unfortunately, the kind of real way to display it in this landed mode just doesn't look that great. So I wish there was some sort of alternative that LEGO could have provided to make the build just look better. But for the purposes of showing you guys the rest of the details of the build, I am going to keep it in this kind of approach mode like I'm calling it. Now, before we move on to the rest of the details of the build, I want to show you guys exactly how the system works for the wings of the V-19 Torrent to get it from the landed mode to that flight mode. Now, the center fin is attached with a pipe piece that goes right into a clip in the middle of the back of the build, and you just have to apply a little bit of pressure to release it and then fold it down, and then same thing, a tiny bit of pressure and you'll feel it lock into place with another clip that's underneath the body. Then for the side wings, you literally just fold them down like that, and there you go. The V-19 Torrent is now in its flight mode, and this build, I have to say, feels really great to swoosh around. It's incredibly sturdy. The actual structural integrity of the build was done really well. So this is a set that kids are going to have no problem flying around, holding it by this lower fin, or even at the back if you wanted to, but that's nowhere near as comfortable as holding it down here. But the build feels great. The wings themselves don't really want to fold up that much on you just by shaking it around or anything like that. They feel just nice and secure, like they want to actually be in this position without locking in place. So the mechanism with kind of the Technic ball joints really works well for these modes. And then just to put it back into that landed position, just to show you guys, the wings just come right back up, and then that wing, you can see there, it kind of just fell out when I let go of it. I think I just put too much pressure in that case, but overall it locks into place pretty simply, and then you just lift it back up, bit of pressure, and there you kind of, I could feel it kind of just snap slightly into place. And there you go, the V-19 Torrent's back in that landed position. Now, as I've already mentioned, I do really like the shaping and general design of the main body of the V-19. I think that was done really well in terms of that shaping and general design. The color scheme of it too, I think looks really great. I love the little hints of olive at the front just before the windshield, and then at the back as well. It just helps to break up that color scheme a little bit. And speaking of breaking up the color scheme, that yellow tinted windshield piece, when I first saw that that was going to be a thing, I thought, oh no, what is LEGO doing? But in watching the source material and watching the Clone Wars, that is a step in the right direction to making it more accurate. It's certainly more accurate than a clear windshield piece or a darker tinted windshield piece. So have to give credit where credit is due. That is a step in that right direction, and it has grown on me even in the short period of time since I have built the V-19 Torrent. It looks a lot better, and I am slowly warming up to it, but it's a bit jarring, I will definitely admit. Now, to access the cockpit, you simply lift up that windshield piece. It tilts away from the body on the front hinge, and then you have a nice brick-built kind of chair for the clone pilot to sit in with a really good-looking sticker control panel too. The one thing I just wish that this build had a clip even on like the underside of the body or somewhere in the cockpit is just a place to store that blaster pistol that the clone pilot comes with, somewhere that it just won't get lost during play. But you can place that clone pilot inside, close the windshield back down, and it's seamless, the entire cockpit section. That looks really, really good. The general design was absolutely nailed. It just looks like one solid piece, where sometimes you get those awkward gaps in certain cockpits on other Starfighter sets, for example. So the fact that this just looks very well thought out and designed, totally seamless, I really do appreciate. And speaking of seamlessness, I absolutely love the effort that was put into the V-19's design, where the body connects through the engines to the wings. There's relatively nothing in terms of gaps here, and it's definitely more than acceptable for the wings to be able to fold up and down from the flight to the landed modes. It needs a little bit of gapping there in order for that function actually to work, but overall it looks like one solid piece, and I really do appreciate just the effort that was made into making it look as good as it does. On the front of the engines, we have two stickers, one on each side for the front air intakes, and these stickers were a bit of a pain to actually place on the way the instructions tell you to place them at a certain angle. I feel like you have to line them up specifically to the one other part of the engine here to make it look good. So these, I feel like, just would have been a lot better, would have been a better user experience, better building experience if LEGO just had printed those two pieces at least, just because of the way that they ask you to put them on there. And then if you get them where they're not matched up, they're just not really going to look good, unfortunately. The rest of the engine's design looks really great. I didn't think I'd like the way these barrels look on the back of the engines, but I actually think they add some nice texture to the design. And then the light blue for the thrust as well looks really great. Same with that engine that's on the center fin. Of course, when it's in the upright landed position, it's facing the wrong way, but you guys can see how it's really nicely integrated into that center fin's design. It doesn't really add too much bulk, which definitely is something that could have easily have happened with trying to make it look good. When it comes to the wings, besides them being a little too short and a bit too thick, they do feel really nice and sturdy, and the color scheme, like the rest of the V-19, was done very well. On each wing, we have one sticker that's done with white and red striping to complement the dark red and white brick in there, just to get a little bit more of that accurate color scheme. And then on the left wing, we have a large Republic logo, which is accurate to the V-19 Torrent in it only having a Republic logo on the left wing, not on both. So that is an appreciated detail that the designers also got right. Then on the ends of the wings, we have the twin laser cannons. The main barrel looks really good, and then the second one is a stud shooter. It looks fine. I totally get it's a play scale set. It's meant also for kids to have that functionality, and this is the correct spot that it should go in. I just feel like some sort of spring-loaded shooter or something in this section could have been incorporated to look a little bit better and would have been a better play feature also. So I feel like they could have done a little bit better there, but overall, I just think it's understandable the way it is. Now, one other thing you might have noticed with the V-19 Torrent in its landed position is you will see the underside of a lot of plates with the wings. That's just unfortunately the way it has to be. And even the sides of the engines in that landed mode just look a little bit flat to me. The shaping isn't quite there, but that's just the way, unfortunately, it has to be for the functionality. So that I can understand. But what I wish the designers would have put a little bit more effort into is the center fin, because you have one side, the left side, that looks really, really great, and then the right doesn't look quite as good. They tried to place some inverted tiles just to tile it off a little bit more, but I feel like they could have done a bit of a better job in making it look a bit more balanced and just making it overall, at least that center fin, look better. Now with that center fin, one thing you might have thought is that it sticks out quite a bit from the body of the Starfighter. However, this is actually accurate to in-universe. It actually sticks out quite a ways away, and it doesn't really tuck too much into the body of the Starfighter. So this overall aesthetic, the way it looks when it's upright in that landed position, is accurate. So to me, it looks absolutely fine. Alright, so when it comes to the V-19 Torrent, I am very happy to admit I do like this set a lot more than I thought I would. The build is nowhere near as kind of downscaled in a bad way as I thought it was going to be. You know, it is closer to minifig scale than the old version of the V-19 Torrent, which, like I've said, I'll be doing a full comparison on, but just for quick reference, it is closer to that minifig scale. If they would have fixed the proportions of it, I think the build would have been just really, really fantastic in all honesty, and then just a way to display it so that it doesn't look quite so wonky in its landed mode. But then if you fix the proportions, it just would look better landed anyway, and the lack of landing gear too, maybe something just to lift it up a tiny bit more to make it kind of, you know, not so just low to the ground as well. A few things that could have made the build a bit better, but in general, it is a pretty good V-19 Torrent, I have to admit. The minifigs, I'm never not going to love that Obi-Wan Kenobi. I personally kind of think it's the best one of him ever, the best Obi-Wan minifig we've ever gotten. Maybe I'll have to do like an ultimate comparison between Kenobi minifigs. That could be pretty cool. But in general, the minifigs are really good. The clone pilot should have been better. Assajj, just some arm printing to make her just more balanced with Obi-Wan. So it definitely had the potential to be a really, really great set. I still think it's a good set, but it's certainly not perfect. And then that $65 price point as well, you know, add the extra arm printing in, a little bit more attention to detail with the printing on the clone pilot. would make it feel like it's worth that $65 price point. It's not crazily overpriced like a lot of the August 1st LEGO Star Wars sets are. This one definitely is on the better for value side of things, but I don't think it's totally there yet. Like a sale for maybe like $60, I think is where, you know, you're starting to say, okay, it is getting to be pretty reasonable for you, or reasonable enough for your money where you're not going to feel like you're overspending. At least I think. So for the Obi-Wan Studios official set rating, I'm giving the 2025 V-19 Torrent an 8.4 out of 10. I had a really hard time trying to actually come up with where this set landed, but when I tried to actually calculate, you know, what I kind of was scoring the minifigs and the build, the price point, everything, it still did rank decently high, and I think this is one of the better sets to release from August 1st. But as always, let me know what you guys think about the set in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching my review on the 2025 75432 V-19 Torrent Starfighter. As always, my name is Justin, and I'll see you guys on the next LEGO Star Wars video on Obi-Wan Studios.